to welcome you to Ellen Foster. Ellen is a trainer here at the Beaver Creek School. She's an 8-year member of the PSIA National Team. She's co-author of the Alpine Technical Manual. She is the recipient of the PSIA Educational Excellence Award. And in April of this year, Ellen is going to be inducted into the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame.
Last fall, I listened to Sasha Werwick, the head men's coach for the U.S. ski team, talk about the importance about having a strong technical foundation for racers to be successful on the U.S. ski team. He began by telling us that when he was a young child, he'd look out his bedroom window every day and he could see the Empire State Building. He drew the outline of the building and he labeled the different sides: physical, technical, tactical, and mental. And at the very top, at the pinnacle, he wrote in big letters, "Love of skiing." Then he drew a large area under the building that he called the foundation. And he said it can take a very, very long time to build a foundation for such a large building. And he spoke about how that foundation is built step by step or brick by brick. But what happens if a brick is broken? He explained to us that so often we ignore the problem and we move on to another place on the wall rather than finding different ways to correct the problem. And he advises us to not forget the steps and to create a really strong foundation for our skiers. Now, I also grew up in New York, but not in the city. I lived on the Massachusetts border in the foothills of the Berkshire Mountains. And when I looked out my window, I could see fields and rolling hills covered in snow. And I lived about 15 miles from Jiminy Peak, where I was a member of the Jiminy Peak Junior Demonstration Team. I was 12 years old, and being on that team set the course for my skiing career. The team I was on was all about developing a strong foundation. Every weekend, we practiced the final forms of the American ski technique of that time: stem turns, stem Christies, parallel Christies, and short swing. We competed all over the East in a program called Ski Masters, where we were judged on how well we executed the final forms. We also had 2 free runs, and sometimes they started at the top of the mountain, and we were given a trail that we had to ski down to the bottom. And here and there would be examiners, and as we skied by them, they would judge us on the quality of our turns, our speed control, and also how we adapted to the different terrain and snow conditions. From the very first day I was on the team, I felt like I was in royal company. We were kings of the mountain as we turned right and left and we pursued perfection in our skiing. We learned to master our turns as we shared determination, disappointments, breakthroughs and accomplishments, pride, and most of all, friendship. As freestyle skiing gained popularity in the mid-1970s, our Jiminy Peak Junior Demonstration Team became a freestyle team. Instead of stem turns and stem Christies, we were judged on outriggers and royal Christies. The precision and fundamental skills we learned gave us the foundation for charging through the moguls, spinning in circles, and flying through the air. Trick skiing was so new at that time that we didn't have anyone to teach us. So the members of the team, we would all go to the beginner hill and we'd spend hours inventing new tricks and then teaching them to each other. I coached on my last year on the freestyle team, and then I competed on the international freestyle circuit. Back then, companies sponsored teams, and I was on the K2 freestyle team. I traveled through the US and Europe with my teammates, competing in ballet, moguls, and aerials. Being from a small ski area, my teammates helped me with steep mogul runs, and I helped them with teaching them the different tricks that I had learned. When the freestyle circuit fell through in the United States, I met a member of the PSIA National Demonstration Team. My career took another turn. It was at Eldora where I met Chris Ryman, and it was early in the season. It was the only ski area that was open, and there was only one run open. So as I went up the chairlift, I could watch him ski down, and I was mesmerized by his skiing. And then at lunchtime, he came over to me and asked me if I'd like to ski with him in the afternoon. Now that's something that everyone in this room does. You reach out to other people and you share your passion for skiing. It can make a difference in a person's life, and it did in mine. Chris told me to go back to Winter Park, get on the ski school, get certified, and make the national demonstration team. And that's what I did. What I remember most about the tryouts was standing at the top of Silver Fox as the snow was falling in Snowboard, as the snow was falling and the evening was setting in. The task we were given was to ski in a formation of an hourglass, starting with big GS turns and then shortening the radius of our turns until we were doing short radius turns in the bumps through the narrows, and then widening our turns back out until we were skiing GS turns as we came onto the flats. You can imagine it was a very long run, and I was the last person to go. So, about 5 people from my turn, I started to take my warm-ups off. Back then, we'd strip down to our ski pants and our sweaters, and as I pulled the zipper down on my warm-ups, it got stuck. And I couldn't pull my zipper back up, and I couldn't pull it down. It was frozen. So it was obvious what I had to do. Standing on this really steep pitch, I had to unbuckle my boots, pull out my foot, pull off the warm-ups, stick my foot back in, and buckle my boots. And by the time I did that, the person ahead of me was waved down. So I stood in the quiet, all alone, and I could see how beautiful the wintry world was around me. And I thought, as the snow was falling, I am exactly where I want to be. I had practiced so that I knew I could do it. And then I practiced more so I knew I wouldn't get it wrong. I wanted so much to be a part of a team again. I didn't want to lose what was so important in my life. While I was on the team, I coached the Winter Park race team. I wanted more than anything to create the spirit that ennobled our team at Jiminy Peak, where I felt like a member of a family and we all worked together to achieve our goals. We needed a team identity. When we raced against other teams, we were the only team that didn't have a uniform. So we took some blue electrical tape and made a stripe on everyone's helmet. It's all it took. The kids felt like they were part of the team. My husband, Brad, was the equipment tech at the Winter Park Competition Center. And he would go to the rental shop and find the old poles and the lost poles and he would bring them back and he'd bend them into shape them to become downhill poles so that they fit each kid perfectly. The kids felt so special, and they were so proud of their mismatched poles. One morning, after new snow had fallen the day before, my team gathered around me. In the early morning light, eager eyes shone through goggles and on faces with collars that were zipped up, and everyone was quiet. They didn't want to disturb the silence of the powder morning. They didn't want to break the spell that all the powder created. Then Brett, one of the youngest of the group, spoke up. And he said, "Let's go to the playground. You know, the side of the mountain that falls off from the meadows, my mountain playground." The slope he referred to fell away from the edge of the meadows, gradually disappearing into the woods below. A fire had claimed much of the hillside years before, leaving logs among tree stumps and boulders. The regrowth of small pine trees were covered in snow, and everything only soft shapes were visible. The snow had blown really hard the night before, and it sculpted the snow into a white world of drifted snow, ridges, rolls, dips, and jumps. The deep snow muffled the sounds of the group as they approached the meadows, and I remember the burst of laughter and shouts as the kids turned into the meadows following Brett. From the meadow's edge, I viewed the mountain from a new perspective. Later, I shared Brett's view of the mountain with my demo team members. We were working on a film, and it soon became titled The Mountain Playground. It emphasized the application of technique to the challenges of the mountain terrain. This led to national focus and became part of the country's message at Interski in Banff, Canada. The presentation by the Professional Ski Instructors of America began with, "The purpose of our workshop is to demonstrate how the students' enjoyment of the mountain playground is enhanced by developing new movement possibilities and strategies, all because of the words spoken by a 6-year-old to his teammates on a wintry day." By the way, Brett went on to make it onto the U.S. ski team, and he was on the team from 1998 to 2003. My most memorable moment as a team member was during Interski in Sesto, Italy. We stayed at a hotel at the end of a valley, and on the morning of our presentation, we were waiting for the bus to come and pick us up and take us to the demonstration hill. We waited, and it didn't come. The decision was made to ski on the cross-country trails through the valley to the demonstration hill. I remember I pulled and skated as hard as I could, but I fell behind. When I entered the arena, I could already see my team members going up the Poma lift, and I skied around to the lift, and it was one of those kinds where the platters retracted up to the cable, and I couldn't reach it. And the music was blaring, and the lift attendant had turned, and he was leaning on a fence watching the festivities. I was so out of breath that I couldn't call to him. So I skied over to him, and I knocked on his back, and he turned around, and he saw I was in uniform. So he quickly went over to the lift, pulled a platter down, and gave me a really hearty push up the hill. And as I was being pulled up the hill, there was nothing I could do to go any faster. So I looked around. I looked at the flags from different countries waving down below. I looked across the valley at the glorious mountains. And I looked up the hill, and I saw the demonstration team all in formation. And I was so proud to be part of that team, and so proud to be representing my country. As I reached the top, Neil Diamond's "Coming to America" rang out, and just as I slid into position, we pushed off as a team. Years later, when I returned to Jiminy Peak, the steepest run there, Whirl Away, didn't seem so steep. My perspective had changed. But my perspective about the childhood experiences I had never changed. We had learned to appreciate effort and value teamwork. I developed close friendships and a love for skiing, while I had the honor of being a member of that team. With the strong technical foundation, many of my teammates, became ski instructors, coaches, and competitors. My brother became the youngest certified instructor in Eastern Division, and he was an adaptive instructor. Todd Friends learned to Nordic jump and set 3 hill records. And Jim Katz skied first descents on mountains in Colorado, Latin America, and the former Soviet Union on telemark skis. Max Burvey was a longtime producer and director for Warren Miller movies, and he raised chickens to pay for his skiing. Brian Bilodeau consistently skied in the top 10 in the ballet event on the international freestyle circuit. In my first professional year of competition, I finished second overall, winning events in the aerials, moguls, ballet, and overall. My sister was a 5-time world champion in ballet. In 2 years, she won the overall title. And little Tommy Tuggy, in his first meet ever, tried a trick and stuck the heels of his skis so hard in the snow, his father had to walk across the course and pull him out. And when he grew up, he became a member of the very first U.S. national freestyle team. Being on my childhood ski team proved to provide a strong technical base for everything I've done. I know I wouldn't be where I am today or here today if I hadn't been a member of that team. So stem turns and stem Christies are old-fashioned now. Now I practice wedge turns and wedge Christies, parallel turns and dynamic turns. Every day I ski. And now my team is the Beaver Creek Ski and Snowboard School, but I like to think of it as a Beaver Creek Ski and Snowboard team. We converse in the language of skiing. When I walk into the locker room, people greet me and ask me about my day. On the hill and in the lift line, I wave to my friends, and most of all is when we get to ski together. I believe it makes sense to have a sense of team, a team that is built on a strong foundation of fundamental skills and of determination, pride, and friendship. Thank you.